Hello there, and welcome to the House of D podcast. I am, of course, your host, D Square here, orator and reviewer of this YouTube channel. And with me, of course, is Volsker.
Hey everybody, Volsker here.
All right, how you doing, Volsker? I saw that you got your YouTube channel up and going, so you've got some content as well. You had a recent video dealing with the Batman White Knight. How was outside of that review, was good, but how, any other thoughts on that real quick?
Honestly, I have to say it's probably one of the better unique stories. Like I briefly mentioned in the video, I just like the take on Joker and Batman, that relationship and that portrayal of, Batman being kind of the darker one into some
Mm-hmm.
aspects. But no, definitely recommended read. It has me kind of pumped up and driven to get into some more. And I mean, this might actually kind of be funny, but I would probably get shit thrown at me for saying this. But I actually liked the White Knight better than I liked the Killing Joke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that will definitely get some vitriol thrown your way. But I definitely understand though. The Killing Joke, was back, a little bit ago there. So the, you know, colors and everything, the writing, it's just not exactly modern. So it does make sense that a newer story of Batman would work a little bit better. But
Mhm.
definitely there's that classic element to the Killing Joke. So hot take there from Volsker. Hot take. So yeah, definitely check out his channel for a more in-depth review. Thank you so much for stumbling upon us. I hope to bring you a unique perspective. Me and Volsker grew up during the 80s and 90s, and so everything that we loved, comics, cartoons, video games, everything that we enjoyed as a kid is now full swing and now in pop culture. So hopefully bring a really unique perspective with me being more of a comic book nerd and Volsker being the resident movie buff here in the podcast. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our main topic. Really something that's been blowing up the headlines with the just massive reveal slash retcon, however you want to consider it, House of X number 2. So I know that those that were tuned into the last podcast would know that Volsker is kind of newly involved with actually reading the comics and dived on in
Yeah.
with the House of X number 1. So we definitely talked about that on the podcast. So what? So I know in on Twitter, you're
Mhm.
like, what kind of trippy comic book, stuff is going on here? So just kind of what's your initial thoughts before I kind of take you through here, nerd explaining to a newbie.
Yeah, so let's crack this open and talk a little bit about my noviceness here. Um, yeah, as you explained it there, you're the experts now when it comes to trippy, what the hell's going on type shit. That's no surprise to me when it comes, to the aspect of like mangas and
Mm-hmm.
movies. But when you're looking at here and just when they just right off the bat just start throwing in your face, like, hey, by the way, everything you've ever known in the past, you might as well just consider that gone because here's a tons more shit of what's going on and she's actually known in this many different times. I'm like, what? Like, what the hell is going on? And
Yeah.
the scene that really did it was when they were going in the heat of the timelines, before you dive too much into that, and it actually replays a bunch of the old scenes and battles from the different X-Men
Yeah.
comics of the past. I was like, whoa, shit! Like it literally shows from the classic Steelers looking black and
Yeah.
black and yellow spandex type X-Men to where Colossus and everybody was getting their more flashy colors, and then to I'm assuming through the lost decades is what when the Phoenix Force was passed around.
Well, the Lost Decades really refers to a lot. So yeah, let me take you through it here then. So maybe I mean, because none of us knew this. Okay, so the first reveal that in this comic book, it comes right at you, and it's this: Moira McTaggart is a mutant. Okay,
Yes.
and she discovers this. So Moira McTaggart has the mutant ability of reincarnation. And it's not your standard reincarnation.
Hmm.
It actually seems to drag time with her. So in her
Yes.
first life, she dies when she's 74 after she's been married and had kids and grandchildren. It describes her getting sick in her early teenage years, then miraculously coming out of it. We see a lot of that in X-Men lore. The first example that I think of is Wolverine in his origin story. You also kind of saw that in X-Men Origins Wolverine 2, where he was a sickly kid and then, got better. So that's when although she didn't know it, that's when her mutation manifested. She did not realize that she was a mutant until her second life. And the thing is she's born again in almost like a different timeline, but in utero. So while she is an infant in her mother's stomach, she has all the memories of her previous life.
Yeah.
And so it's in her second life then, when she discovers that she's a mutant. And so that's when she decides that she's going to create a mutant cure.
Hmm.
She does it. Okay, she creates this mutant cure. And so what happens then is this really crazy scene where Mystique and Destiny destroy the whole facility, kill everyone inside except for Moira McTaggart.
Yeah.
And what Destiny explains to her is, okay, I know you're a mutant. I know your power. I've seen your future. So I'm always going to know, no matter what life you're in, I'm always going to know what you're doing. And so here's the thing. And Moira's like begging for her life, and they're just like, no, we're going to kill you, but you need to listen first. Don't create this cure.
Hmm.
Don't create this cure because although, she's like, oh, I'm not going to use it for, I'm not going to force it on anybody. But Destiny's not having it. As we all know, any sort of mutant cure has been weaponized, and that's what
Yep.
basically Destiny explains to her. So that's why they can't let this happen. So then Destiny, Pyro's there, so it's basically a Brotherhood of Evil Mutants thing. And yeah, he's like, okay, Pyro, or she's like, okay, Pyro, go ahead, kill Moira here, burn her up. Oh, but by the way, don't do it too quick because we want her to remember this. We want her to remember what death feels like in case she tries this again.
I'm sure with that blast, yeah, that was a little quick.
Yeah. So that's Destiny is really hasn't been seen in the comic books for quite some time. So that was really kind of a cool reveal.
I don't think I've ever seen that character, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, she's definitely definitely old. So okay, I want to keep track here. So we've got the first life where she dies when she's 74. Okay.
Hmm.
Then there's the second life where she meets Professor Xavier
Hmm.
and learns that she's a mutant. So in her second life, then she decides, okay, I've got to go meet this Professor Xavier. So she gets on a plane, it crashed and
Hmm.
dies. Her third life is where she created this mutant cure, and that's where she died at the hands of Pyro.
Hmm.
And then she has this fourth life where she meets up with Xavier successfully,
Hmm.
She actually, I believe she like goes into college and makes sure she's in the same college with him and everything like that. Um, so she falls in love with Professor X in her third
Hmm.
life. Okay, now this is where this fourth see, it's easy to get mixed up here. So yeah, the fourth life where she meets Xavier. This is the life that we know, and this is where you were, where you were describing. They're showing like the decades of the X-Men. So we've got the
Yes.
gifted years where it's the original five. Then we have through the time of hate and fear, which is like the giant size X-Men, the team that we all know. Colossus, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Cyclops, Storm,
Yep.
and then the Lost Decade. So here, yeah, you're seeing the Phoenix Force, X-Men, Colossus, Magic, Emma Frost, Cyclops, and Namor. So through the Avengers vs. X-Men,
Hmm.
just really everything recently. This is really kind of Jonathan Hickman throwing shade at the X-Men stories as of late through calling it the Lost Decade. But so this fourth timeline comes to an end at the hands of the Sentinels killing the mutants.
Which is pretty. Yeah, that one was just like, wait, what?
Well, so yeah, here's the major thing. So they're basically saying, oh yeah, those X-Men, all the X-Men stories that you've read since the 1960s, that's all gone.
Yeah,
It ends
they
with the
die.
Sentinels killing,
Yeah.
you know. So Uncanny X-Men number 22, which of course is a review on my channel, that's in, of course, this timeline. And so we now know that the fate of that universe is for them to be killed by the Sentinels.
Fucking
Um,
crazy.
yeah. So then in her fifth life, she meets up with Xavier much earlier.
Hmm.
She, convinces him that let's just take the mutants, let's just go away from the humans. But nonetheless, the Sentinels still come from them.
I like how the kind of the definition too in there was like instead of having a school of mutants, he gathered a legion.
Right, exactly. It wasn't a school, it was a legion, it was an army. But yeah, so
I think that's a huge cue too to what we've been talking about how Xavier and Magneto and the current group that it's almost out of the normal realms of what you expect from the X-Men. And
yeah,
then to me when you go from a school gifted to teach and prosper to now I'm building a legion, which is basically like a cult following, just a massive army. I think this sounds like it's kind of that change to the more darker side of them
right,
to what we
exactly.
now know and what's the current, I'm assuming, current continuity and story timeline.
Right, and we'll definitely get to that. But so what's interesting here is we just described their fifth life, okay, which is, she meets up with Xavier much earlier in life. They create this mutant utopia away from the humans, but yet Bolivar Trask is, his Sentinels still come and wipe them all out. So then they go to her seventh life. So they skip the sixth life. They have not described
Hmm.
what happened in their sixth life. Maybe it's the Fox X-Men movies. I don't know, but they don't touch on it.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Which well deserved. Let's not go there. Let's just shove that
Was
crap
she even in
all.
the movies?
She was in X-Men First Class, and she was in X-Men Apocalypse.
Wait, was she the FBI agent?
Right.
Oh, see, I would never put two and two together. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe if you look at the seventh, because the seventh she becomes a badass assassin,
Right. She becomes
which
assassin to kill all the Trask,
that's
women,
family, yeah.
children, everything. Just kill them all. But what's
Was there a
interesting.
midget Trask?
Not in the comics. That was a whole movie thing. I mean, which it was fine. Peter Dinklage is a great actor, and he certainly
Absolutely.
pulled it off. But yes, that is a purely movie thing. But that goes to show you, they can make changes. It doesn't have to be exactly like the comic book. Just have it make sense. Which, yeah, that doesn't ruin anything having Bolivar Trask be a dwarf. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's just adapting. You don't have to, like you said, change it. That's when you start, yeah,
yeah.
just ruining shit. Fox.
Fucking Fox.
Now, how does this end? This timeline?
Well, so basically, what they discover is that even though she's taken she's killed all the humans that were ever into building these Sentinels, but yeah, what turns out happening is artificial intelligence starts building them. So she basically learns that, okay, no matter what, this whole mutant versus machine thing, it's going to happen. So on her 8th life, she allies herself with Magneto. You know, she's like, fuck Xavier, fuck the X-Men, I'm going straight to Magneto, I'm going to appeal, to his, the fact that he's a Holocaust survivor. I'm going to tell him about this mutant, massacre. And so they align together, but then all the heroes, X-Men, Avengers, Fantastic Four, bring him down.
Yeah, that's just a call to, like, Marvel's heyday. Every fucking superhero in the Marvel universe, basically.
Right. So then in her next life, so that was her 8th, where she aligns with Magneto and gets taken down by all the heroes at large.
Still no 6th.
Right, no mention of the 6th. So in her next life, her 9th life, she aligns herself with Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Now they do not, they're not stopped by the heroes at all. They kill all the heroes.
They're about to say they're fucking people. Wait a minute, I just noticed, is that
That's Miss Marvel.
Captain
That's
America?
Captain America. That's
Shit, I did
Iron
not
Man.
realize that. What the hell?
Like Apocalypse and his crew
Just fucking mow them down.
go to work.
Holy shit. How did I miss that?
But then they're brought down by the machines, by these advanced Sentinels. We see Nimrod and Apocalypse fighting, and all those weird type of Sentinels that we saw on Power of X1.
It's crazy, though, that she's, like, unlike when she aligned with Magneto, and Magneto just got his ass kicked by the heroes, she's, like, back-to-back with Apocalypse and just fucking fighting.
Yeah, that was cool. That would... well, I'll touch on that in a little bit, but that would be cool to see more of. Okay, so now we're on her 10th life. So, okay, this is where I'm going to go back to where her and Destiny had a conversation, because Destiny told her really 2 things. A, if you die before your mutant powers manifest, you're dead. It's over. Number 2, I can see the future, I see your future, and I see 10, maybe 11 lives. So we're on live number 10 here. And so the last 2 pages of this comic are already in Powers of X number 1. They're the first scene. They're the scene where we're like, huh? What do you mean? Or not? Yeah, not the very first scene, but yeah, the scene where Moira meets Charles Xavier for quote unquote the first time, but then she tells him, "Oh no, we've been old friends. Here, read my mind," and he's like, "Oh."
Yep.
So obviously, the storyline with the pod people, the Krakoa, Magneto telling, the mutant or the human ambassadors, like, we're your new gods now. That is obviously Moira's 10th life.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously with the Powers of X and the 4 chunks of time that it showed, the beginning, the world, the war, and the ascension, that is all in the same timeline of Moira's 10th life.
I do find something interesting here, because when we progress to the next pages, this is where they actually put honestly a really nice detailed timeline.
Yes.
Of all but the 6th of the timelines. And this has to be, like, she must not fall in love with Xavier, because it even says on this one she marries Joseph McTaggart.
Right. Right, which that's where McTaggart comes from. That was actually a married name, even even back in her, whatever was it, 3rd life. Which again, her 3rd life is all the stories that we've been reading since the 60s. So that's profound to me, that they're basically wrapping all that up into that timeline, which is now done, which they've now already told us ends in the death of the X-Men. So another interesting thing here is in this this timeline that's in the back of the book here that literally
Hmm.
spans 1, 2, 3, 4,
Quite
five,
a bit.
6, really 7 pages. Notice that in her ninth life, as well as her 10th,
Hmm.
you've got like the arrows. It's not solid, which
Yeah.
designates that she's still alive. Okay? So in her ninth life, I don't know what this means, but that timeline doesn't show an end to her. It shows the apocalypse war begin and then goes dot 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 and never stops. I don't know why. I don't
Part of the
know.
fifth too, until the genocide.
Right, but then we see the end. So I don't know what's up with that. I don't know if that's a mistake because they clearly were saying, that they got defeated, but interesting. And then obviously the 10th life here, and we see on year 47, Moira Xavier Magneto Schism.
So it sounds like she's actually in charge
Um,
of kind of what's going on too. She's like co-leaders with those two.
right, which is really strange.
Have they even shown her in the present in the comic?
I have a theory that the Omega Sentinel is her. The
Oh,
one that's with Nimrod in the war timeline.
that's a very good point.
So, I mean, wow. This completely changes the landscape of the X-Men. It completely breaks open everything to where we really are getting a new beginning. And I just have to thank Jonathan Hickman or the people at Marvel for letting us know what's going to come after this, because if we didn't already know about the new X books coming out and the rosters of those X books, I would be really, really worried right now. I really would, because they're officially. I mean, again, all these. I'm looking at these comic books and graphic novels, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, all of that's gone. All of that all ends in the machines killing the mutants. Now, what I don't
Yeah.
know though is, does this affect the other Avengers? I mean, is the whole Marvel timeline now beholden to Moira McTaggart? I think a lot of other series are doing their own kind of time resets and skips, so I don't know if they're just gonna, if this 10th timeline is a way to now just align everything once again. But wow, great stuff, great stuff. No one saw this coming. No one saw
Hmm.
that Moira McTaggart was going to be almost the master of the mutant world, and so wow. I
Yeah.
can't. Obviously, every one of these we read, we say, oh, we can't wait to read the next one. But so, as someone coming in new to this, though,
Hmm.
and now that I've kind of taken you through it, any questions or thoughts, or can you see where basically whether everything that I read has been squished? So I'm really nowhere. I'm not that much more ahead of you here. But what's your thoughts or questions?
Yeah, no, and I mean you have a valid point there. If anything, I think you just have more experience with the characters themselves at this point when you look at what's,
Yeah.
gone. Um, but a couple things to point out too is in you have a good question there about the timeline and how it's impacting other Marvel comics, because we gotta kind of revisit too that um the Fantastic Four were in this, so we know the other heroes are still here.
Right.
Um, Now, not getting too far off too, but with the other series that we're reading with the Absolute Carnage, one of their spin-offs is the Avengers that happen to have some of the X-Men inside of it.
Right.
So I think they're probably, and that's my guess, is keeping them separate and kind of still doing their own thing with it. But it would be nice if they really wanted to get balls deep in something crazy. You could easily use this to start a whole new continuity in Marvel, period.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make some drastic fucking changes. I mean, we've already seen Venom go to Flash Thompson and be a soldier, for God's sakes.
Oh yeah.
Like,
And
But
Venom
I
was
did,
anti-venom, which he was
yeah,
colors
first
were
cancer.
inverted. Yeah.
But I did want to point out when we were talking about this timeline with the schism, and I didn't pay attention. At one, it says that she gave birth to Proteus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Who is Proteus?
Um. Yeah, he is a big time villain. He's got like reality warping powers. Um. Actually, Colossus had to end up killing him in the original timeline, or I guess as we'll refer to as Moira's third life. So, but yeah, he is now back in. He's back in the game because yeah, there was just hey, Proteus was born, but nothing after that. So that may be a problem.
So we have that, and then we have that she actually faked her death
Mm-hmm.
2 years prior to House of X, which would make sense of why we don't really know where she currently is, because they probably think she's dead.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking she's like the Omega level, or not Omega level, but she's the Omega Sentinel.
She'd be pretty goddamn mega level at this point. She knows pretty much how everything ends for.
Yeah, and that may be why she ends up just siding with the machines. But yeah, we'll see what that. Yeah,
That would be insane.
we may have like a Moira versus Professor X, or that may be coming up.
Very possible.
So we'll
She could
definitely.
make the machines for all we know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and like she said, whether it was Trask or AI, it was always going to happen. So she could just give in to inevitability.
Yeah. I'm wholeheartedly behind that one there, especially with the fact that we know with Powers of X, the different time periods, that a war is coming, simply put.
Right.
And I think she will probably end up having a huge role. On what side is wait to be seen, but definitely I know she has to have something coming into this.
Yep, and we will find out more here in the next couple of days when Powers of X #2 comes out. So you can definitely look for a review here on the channel, and of course, me and Volsker will be talking about that in next week's podcast. So before we get into our next series that we're both kind of following, we're both kind of new. You have a bit of news or something that you wanted to bring up?
So I know we last week we were talking a little about some of the recent movies, things like that, with Phase 4. So I did see
Yeah.
some notes that it looks like Jeremy Renner is confirmed to actually be back as Hawkeye in the Black Widow movie, which is kind of interesting. So it sounds like as of right now, he and Scarlet Witch may be the only two heroes that we know that will be in multiple projects during Phase 4. Because we know he has his show with him and his daughter.
Right.
Because it's believed that his daughter will take over for him. And then he, at this point, whether it's a small cameo or we actually finally get to see their past, but we know its current timeline, maybe not, if anything, a flashback, inside the Black Widow movie.
That's really cool to hear that because, I would hope that he would be in that movie, so we can see where more of their rapport came from.
Yes.
Hopefully, that helps kind of sell the whole, like, give up, which is you love the most, that gave him the soul gem, so that helps sell that a bit more. Maybe we'll even see Budapest, who knows. But the Taskmaster is also in that movie, so that'll be cool to see like three of them, fight in a big scene or something like that. So it's actually got me excited about the movie because the Taskmaster is really cool. I don't know if you know about him or what his powers are.
A little bit.
Yeah, he's got like he can just remember body movements of people that
People's
he fights.
abilities.
Right.
Can he like kind of not like replicate them a little bit?
Well, a little bit. So, like in the comics, he's like running around with like a Captain America type shield and a broadsword, and he's using a bow and arrow like Hawkeye. So, he's in a Marvel vs. Capcom game, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I believe he's in there.
think
You know.
he's been in some of the Spider-Man games too.
Oh, yeah, I believe you're correct. I'm sure of it. So it's just really, really cool to throw that type of villain, because obviously that movie's not going to be like, super power special effects. It's, going to be more of a Winter Soldier type, movie with really great choreography and the fighting, and really great action scenes that aren't, heavily reliant on CGI and superhero powers. So that should be cool. That sounds like a good movie now that, because at first was just, a prequel of Black Widow I wasn't interested in, but then I heard about, which villain's going to be in it, and now Jeremy Renner's going to be Hawkeye in it. Definitely shaping up something that I might actually go to the theaters for.
I'll be on the. I'll have to see something. I want to see at least a trailer. And looking at ScarJo, I mean, I could look
You're
at
all
her
about
in her red dresses. Some older movies. She's fucking fine as hell. But if it is anything like, and I mean even half like Winter Soldier, I will be there, because that is still to this day easily top 3 Marvel MCU movie. Just how perfect of a movie that was. It to me, it's still my actually it is my favorite out of all of them.
It's just a great action movie. And again, not heavily reliant on superhero powers and stuff like that. So it can really, I feel like it really brought into some maybe more serious moviegoers into the MCU. And those can, this is just a really good action flick.
Yeah.
That, it just happens to have, Captain America and Crossbones and the Winter Soldier. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot like that. Yeah, and of course, filmed in the land. Absolutely. I drive on that highway quite a bit, and I think about Winter Soldier every time. Every time. All right. Well, so that's cool. Good topic there. We'll be looking for more Phase 4 information, although to me we're in the X-Men era of the MCU, so I'm just really looking for any sign of the mutants, how they're going to introduce them.
Right.
How's it coming? Give it to me. So, all right, well, let's go ahead. And so this topic is interesting. So the Absolute Carnage, we both are reading that, and I am not, learned, or I'm not following the recent, I guess, pretty much Venom stuff more than Spider-Man. And I know you haven't either. I certainly, went online and kind of researched some stuff.
Yeah.
What's good about this comic, though, is it does spend some time at the beginning setting up the fact that basically there's a symbiote god, and this planet symbiotes, this planet of symbiotes that they've had in other Venom storylines is not so much a planet of symbiotes, but it's rather a whole shitload of symbiotes that are trying to keep in this symbiote god. And if symbiote god gets unleashed, then he's gonna basically destroy the universe and whatnot. And so Carnage has somehow become this, symbiote god, and can now basically manipulate or control anyone that's had any sort of contact with symbiotes. And so he's headed toward Earth. He's pretty much at Earth when this comic starts. And
it's like a codex in their DNA.
Right.
After
Exactly. So anyone that's used the symbiote's imprinted itself on their DNA, and now this symbiote god can control them at will. And so then we catch up with Eddie Brock in Venom, and the reason why I say that is because, obviously the symbiote is now with Eddie Brock, but they're really like, before in comics it was we are Venom, we this, kind of speaking in unison. Now they've got like separate identities. He's got his son, but
fucked with his past too. Don't forget about that, and that's one of the reasons why Brock does not want the Venom symbiote anymore.
Right, exactly. So there's that dynamic there Then there's this child character who is somehow Eddie Brock's son, but he's told the kid that he's his brother.
Yep.
And so that kid's like with him. He's got nowhere else to go. And when I say them, I say that because, of course, Eddie Brock and Venom teams up with Spider-Man. He's telling Spider-Man about how Carnage is coming, and so it's a really cool dynamic there. I mean, with Spider-Man and Venom, but it's definitely different than, obviously this is kind of the sequel to Maximum Carnage, where Venom and Spider-Man teamed up to take out Carnage, but it was a different dynamic because it was like Venom and Spider-Man. This is more, Peter Parker Spider-Man and Eddie Brock Venom. It's not just, a monster with Spider-Man. It's, Spider-Man and another person, Eddie Brock, and they've obviously got a rich history there, and you can tell that, as they're kind of interacting and trying to, find out what exactly is happening. And through all this horrific story, Spider-Man's very lighthearted in his quips. I mean, it's just a really cool, because again, we're both coming in this new, so we're taking it at face value. And at this point, it's, Spider-Man and Venom teaming together yet again to try and take out Venom, but it's like a super Venom.
Yeah.
Or super Carnage, super Carnage.
Yes, and that's kind of like just shown right in the, I don't want to say really beginning, because the beginning, the Venom symbiote is not even with Brock. He's actually stalking him.
Right.
Because as it's kind of loosely mentioned, based off of I'm assuming the symbiote planet arc that they did, it left Brock without the symbiote, and kind of going back to how he was playing with his memories and implanting false information.
Right.
And then you just see all of a sudden Brock and his son just get shoved in front of a train.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck's about to happen? And you just see this black goo from out of the shape of a human that, if you look in the prior one, it's just sitting right behind reading the newspaper, and all of a sudden you just see Venom in full shape without any host just derail an entire train.
Yeah,
so
that
that's
was
how
cool.
These symbiotes are strong as hell.
Yeah.
But then that goes into 2 pages ahead, where we see the main Carnage, and basically explains that they're trying to wake up Null, the god.
Yep.
But you need every codex and character that they've ever controlled to be powerful enough to do this. And he just straight out one-hit punches Brock and Venom in his face, just breaks Eddie's orbital socket, and he's out. One hit. Like, are you shitting me? He literally just derailed a full-blown train by blocking it, and he gets taken down with one punch.
Yeah, one punch to the face.
Yeah, like, I read that, I was like, shit, now I know that this is going to be insane, because if he's that strong with one hit, what is a whole fucking planet full of them going to be like?
Yeah. And so, yeah, they end up getting away from that fight.
Kind of interesting how, actually.
Well, right, because...
Electrocution.
Yeah, so Venom, like the Venom symbiote, is sensitive to sound. Carnage's symbiote is very sensitive to electricity. So, Venom in a desperate, move, because they're getting their asses kicked to him, he grabs, one of the rails, the electrified rails for the train, grabs Carnage. Obviously, that completes the circuit. Fries Carnage. Excuse me. Like, you see the corpse of Cletus Cassidy. You see it, like, so that's basically what this, this version of Carnage is basically just kind of like bonded with the corpse of its original host, which is Cletus Cassidy, the serial killer. But, so yeah, with that desperate move, Venom, his son, and Spider-Man are able to kind of get out of there, run away from Carnage. And so what they figure out, though, is Norman Osborn is in prison after he was the Red Goblin. Real quick, the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, did bond with, like, the Carnage symbiote.
Yes.
And so now he's in prison, locked away in a Supermax facility.
With the Codex.
But he also thinks he's Cletus Cassidy. He no longer believes himself to be Norman Osborn. So, for whatever reason, Spider-Man and Venom, decide, okay, well, let's go check this out. Like, we can't let Carnage, kill Norman Osborn. So Carnage attacks this asylum place, this, Supermax facility, starts throwing, he rips himself open, because he looks like Cletus Cassidy at this point. But he's, taking, chunks of himself, throwing it into cells, and then creating a bunch of, mini Carnages. And so they start to swarm the place, and obviously, Venom and Spider-Man get overwhelmed. They can't stop, Norman Osborn, and, of course, Carnage from basically meeting, and what happens is he's not there to kill Norman Osborn. He's there to make another Carnage. Now, and so the Carnage that comes from, the Norman Osborn who thinks he's Cletus Cassidy, he looks like the Carnage that, we've known all along. So he's not like these, drone Carnages that the rest of the prisoners, they've got, this weird swirly symbol on their head.
Reminds me of, what is it? What is his name?
Are you talking about from Naruto? Okay, right, okay. Yeah, it reminds me of that symbol from Moana, but anyway.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is Disney.
Yeah. So the main baddie Carnage looks, he looks pretty much like Carnage, but he's more skeletal looking, and then these drone Carnages, they've got the weird symbol, but this Norman Osborn Carnage, he looks like the regular Carnage that we've known. And that's pretty much where this issue ends. So, I mean, shit definitely pops off real early, in this episode, in this issue. Like I said, it does kind of catch us up, at least at the concept of Null and the symbiote god and the planet of the symbiotes, and so at least gets us up to speed as far as why Cletus Cassidy is now this super, Carnage, god of the symbiotes, who's trying to help revive Null. So we can at least enjoy it for what it is at face value. We don't know every nook and cranny, but we know enough to enjoy this going on. I just don't know. See, one thing that is frustrating about comics is that they'll do storylines that hop different books.
Yes.
With their big crossover events, they have done this thing recently where there's the main title, and then there's some spin-offs from there. But as long as you collect all the main Secret Wars titles, you're gonna understand exactly what's going on, and then all these other offshoot titles they can kind of add to it, or maybe fill in some cracks. So
yeah.
So yeah, and this looks like it's going to be the situation here. It looks like this story is going to be spread over 3 or 4 different titles.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. That has actually been a huge concern, actually. I've seen multiple posts about that.
Yeah.
People actually attacking Donny Cates because of it being what some people believe is a cash grab being involved in that massive of a story. But he said you can focus and just read 1 through 5 and know the whole story.
Which I'm sure he's right. I'm just, and that's probably what I'm going to do. I don't think I want to collect all the various. I mean, heck, when the X-Men books come out, there's going to be 6 of them. I'm only getting 2. I mean, hey, Marvel, if you want to send me free shit, I will read it and review it. But otherwise, I
Seven,
can't.
by the way, 7.
7. So yeah, I can't do that. Again, unless Marvel, you want to send me and Volsker free copies.
Shit, no, it keeps going up. Holy fuck. Okay, before we end this, I want to go through this because
Okay, we got time.
Holy shit. Yeah, and I'm actually going to try to do this. God, for the life of me, now I get into expensive ass hobby. Hey, at least I won't have money for drugs. I mean,
There you go.
So we got Absolute Carnage, and this is just in August, by the way. Absolute Carnage 1 and 2, Miles Morales, Scream, Lethal Protectors, versus Deadpool, Separation Anxiety, and Venom 17. That is just in the next 2 weeks.
Wow.
September, Carnage. So Carnage 3, Miles Morales 2, Scream 2, Lethal Protector 2 versus Deadpool 2, Absolute Carnage, Ghost Rider, Symbiote of Vengeance. So there's a new one, which that actually sounds pretty fucking badass.
Yeah, it does actually.
Symbiote Spider-Man, so it sounds like Spider-Man might be getting his suit again. That's a whole nother one.
Yeah.
Carnage Avengers.
Okay.
And on the cover of that, Logan is actually in it, so Wolverine is part of this Avengers during this timeline. Venom 18, and then Amazing Spider-Man 30. Shit, holy shit. So,
yeah.
We got like 10 so far, at least. So Carnage, Miles Morales, Scream, Lethal Protectors, versus Deadpool, Separation Anxiety, Venom, Amazing Spider-Man, Avengers, Symbiote Spider-Man, so that's 10. Ghost Rider, 11. And then we go into October, and we have all the same ones from this month, but add in Immortal Hawk. So there's the 12th one. And then in November, we wrap it all up with just Venom and Carnage. So there is literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. 29 issues to complete this whole story.
They could have just gone one more to make it even 30, but yeah, wow.
Yeah, that is going to actually bother me now to point that out.
Well, I mean, at least he's saying, I mean, and he's probably right. You get the Absolute Carnage 1 through 5 or whatever, and you're going to know the story. But, in order to flesh things out, you're going to have to get those other books. So I'm going to follow the main line. But it's just, again, that's a frustrating thing about comics. I mean, I guess, you can choose not to partake. But like in the Fear Itself storyline. So this was a while back, a Fear Itself storyline where Odin's brother, the serpent, kind of lets loose, and he throws these hammers down to earth, and various people get him, and it turns them into like evil Asgardian versions of himself. So it was Hulk was one of them, Juggernaut was one of them. But anyway, and so it had the main Fear Itself book, but then it had Fear Itself Avengers, Fear Itself Uncanny X-Men, Fear Itself Hulk. And like in Fear Itself Uncanny X-Men, that's where the X-Men try to deal with the Juggernaut that's going crazy. And in order to do so, Liliana makes a deal with the demon, the Sidorak demon, like, hey, Juggernaut's now serving this new serpent god, so, I mean, don't you think maybe you should choose another vassal of Juggernaut? And he agrees and makes Colossus his, so something major like that, wasn't in the main Fear Itself storyline. So it's just, I guess to me, just like, what do we miss if we're not reading all that?
That would have been a really, that would be like a kick to the nuts. Like if you follow the main story, and all of a sudden, like issue 3, Colossus is Colossus, then issue 4, all of a sudden he's Juggernaut Colossus. You'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, wait, what the fuck?
And that's the sort of thing. That's exactly the sort of thing that happens. Is you're like, oh, hey, when did that happen? I mean, comic books are pretty good at referencing that sort of thing, but
You don't get the full effect.
yeah, I mean, if you're just real big into that sort of thing, being streamlined and following all the continuity and keeping it all in order, if that's the major problem for you, then you could get frustrated.
Yeah. But I will wholeheartedly say I plan on doing that. And honestly, I probably won't do it with the X-Men, so I think that's where I might take a step back a little bit and let you do some of that. There are a couple out of the, 5 or 6 X-Men that are coming out after Powers of X and House of X that I would like to follow. But this, yeah, I'm excited about where Absolute Carnage
Yeah.
is going. But now here's a big thing with that too, though, is after next month, it becomes a once a month issue.
Yeah, this once a week crap that's happening with the X-Men, that is uncommon. You know, usually it's only every 2 weeks or every month or even couple of months sometimes, depending on the series. So I know you're newer into comics, so definitely don't expect the weekly stuff because that is not that's not common. I mean, they did it with the Uncanny X-Men disassembled storyline. So they ripped those all out in 10 weeks, and they're doing it with the House of X, Powers of X. But yeah, that really, unless again you're doing the multiple books like you're planning on doing, then okay, then you'll probably get a book a week or even a couple a week. But you know, like when they do the Dawn of X, which is what they're calling after House of X, Powers of X, and they're going to do the main 6 X titles. You know, they won't be as frequent. And I'm going to continue on with just the main X-Men book and X-Force. And because X-Force, I always like X-Force actually. What's cool about the X-Force is it's basically the team of X-Men that they form whenever they need to kill people. Like, because the X-Men don't kill. But, you know, anytime Wolverine wants to kill somebody, he just leaves the X-Men. Or leaves and just joins X-Force real quick. So that's X-Force. They're like the Black Ops, we will fucking kill you X-Men. Like, you have to be taken out. No fucking around. I hear this iteration, though, is going to be the more CIA of the X-Men. So I don't know if it's going to stay with the Black Ops type stuff. But obviously it has Colossus, so I'm going to follow that. Excalibur
looks interesting.
I know, I'm
looking at
tempted.
issue 1.
Yeah.
They're being led by Apocalypse.
Well, no, they're being led by Captain Britain, who is Psylocke, but now she's in her own body. See, Psylocke's name is Betsy Braddock. She's actually an English chick. Captain Britain's sister. Her name's Betsy. Yeah. And so her mind got put into this like Japanese mutant ninja, and that's who we know as Psylocke. So now what's happening is that consciousness is being taken out of her. So Psylocke is going to be like the original Japanese. Her name's Quanin. And then Betsy Braddock is going to be the new Captain Britain and going to be leading. But yes, Apocalypse is on the fucking team. What's up with that?
Yeah, it's Apocalypse. We got Jubilee, we got Gambit. I'm not sure who the other guy is with the Wolverine-looking leather jacket with a big old red X in the middle. And then we got Rogue.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about the because I know you don't know this. So there is kind of a good version of Apocalypse that I wonder if his name's Evan or Genesis. It's like his code name. He's like a clone of Apocalypse. And he is essentially good. I wonder if that's him growing up. But it really does sound like it's just straight Apocalypse though. But that could be their cop out that's not actually his name's Evan.
Is he strong as Apocalypse?
Yeah, no, I mean yeah. every bit as strong. It's just, and he's always like, they're always worried, like, oh, is he going to actually
Hmm.
um, turn into Apocalypse? Like, it's always a worry. Um, but we haven't seen him for a while, so
Let's look in here. The only other, and then yeah, the Marauders that just looks interesting. Was this Emma Frost? We got Iceman, Storm, Pyro. I'm assuming is that Kitty Pryde with
yeah, it is. They're like
fucking a
pirate
dragon?
X-Men.
Yeah, like
Well,
what the fuck
Lockheed,
is?
yeah, Lockheed's always been with her. Well, not
Um,
always, but um,
and then what's his name from the future?
yeah. So that's gonna be, yeah. It's supposed to, then like they're on a ship of some sort. So that's the people are really interested in that. I'm not the um,
That New Mutants. Just looking at them, don't look. Yeah, which is actually kind of funny because just knowing the fact that going back to our first time that movie was supposed to be coming out, and then now they're
yeah.
announcing it in comic. Uh,
Oh, that guy with the wooden staff, by the way, before that's Gambit. Excalibur
oh
is.
yeah, no, I knew that was Gambit.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Oh
I
yeah,
see. That's
that's
Jamie
old school
Madrox. The
Gambit.
other one is Jamie Madrox.
Wait,
Multiple
say
Man.
that name one more time.
Yes, Jamie Madrox from Twisted got his name from Multiple Man, whose name is Jamie Madrox.
That's fucking hilarious. I never.
I mean, I
Wow.
don't know if that's what he got it from, but yeah, that's to me like, yeah, I've always raised an eyebrow like, oh, Jamie Madrox, huh?
Now this is interesting. So that's new to me, and that's interesting. Now, Fallen Angels. So we have, I'm assuming X-23,
hmm
the original Psylocke, which is now the what you mentioned. How the
Yeah, she's the actual Japanese chick.
is this a young Cable?
Yeah, so recently, Young Cable. So, warning, rabbit hole time. Warning. So basically, Beast decided that he didn't like this was back when Cyclops was like a mutant terrorist and all that. He thought that he could maybe if he brought the original X-Men from their timeline to this timeline that they could somehow talk sense into everybody and it would be peaches. Well, it wasn't. And it just ended up with the original 5 X-Men not being in their timeline and being in this present timeline. And so it turns out that Cable, the guy that, keeps everything the way it's supposed to be in the timeline, was supposed to take them back. But he didn't. So a younger version of himself killed the older version of Cable and then sent the original 5 X-Men back where they were supposed to do.
What?
This young Cable is also the one that resurrected Cyclops. Where Cyclops was recently resurrected about 13 issues ago in the Uncanny X-Men run. And somehow this Cyclops was just resurrected, has all the memories of that original Cyclops that this young Cable just sent back. So he knows that this young Cable just killed the older Cable, and he confronts him about it. And this younger Cable just explains that he wasn't doing his job. I didn't murder myself. I just replaced myself with a more effective one. And then that's it. Everyone's like, oh, okay.
Interesting.
And there we go. Now we've got a younger Cable. So, all right, we'll dig out of the rabbit hole here. All right, here we go. We're back on the surface. And I didn't even go into explaining how the young Cable revived Cyclops because that's
which is technically his father.
yes, which is his father exactly.
So,
Yeah.
sweet Jesus.
Yeah, I think you know what. Let's let everyone rest on that stuff real quick. Welcome to the world of comic books, and particularly the X-Men. And I think that's where we'll end it tonight. So thank you everyone for listening to the podcast. Please join us next week. We might even do some live broadcast if that's something that everybody is interested in. But so before we go, Volsker, what do you got going on? Anything you want folks to know about?
Yeah, if anybody's interested, I know my comic noviceness here is starting to come out a little bit, kind of, honing it and bringing it out. You can always check out any of my, comic reviews at youtube.com/Volsker. That's pretty much where I'm focusing at a lot as of right now. As mentioned earlier, just posted the review of White Knight, and I am looking to try to get out probably a non-spoiler for some of the weekly issues. One being the House of X, Power of X issues 1, and then Carnage issue 1. I'm looking to have that in the next couple days.
Nice, awesome. And as always, I'm at dsquare72 on Twitter, and of course here on my YouTube channel, sometimes on my Twitch. So check me out. Love to come hang out, to have you come and hang out with me, no matter what platform it is. So until next time, where I'm sure we'll be discussing the Powers of X #2, among other nerdy happenings. So stay tuned. Peace and love, everyone. Have a good night.
Peace out, everyone.